my name is Kay Meyer. I'm a reader and writer, and I love all things spooky. Today, I wanted to pop in and talk about a few of the books I've added to my TBR recently. It's taking me a little bit longer to read for the Asian Readathon than I expected. Nothing against the books. I'm loving what I'm reading. But I picked a couple of really long ones, and this time of year is also really busy for me at work, so I'm not getting as much reading time in as I'd like. So stay tuned for my Asian Readathon wrap up next month. At the end of this video, I'll give you a little sneak peek of two of the books I've been reading. But with any of these identity-based readathons, I'm finding way more books that I want to read than I have time for. So I wanted to share a little bit about some of the books that I'm adding to my TBR. Starting off with That Which Feeds Us by Keala Kendall. This is a Hawaiian Gothic horror. Sign me up. As you can see here, I have Mexican Gothic on my shelf to read. Later this year, I plan on reading Japanese Gothic. Now, those are two books with that as the title. That Which Feeds Us is a Hawaiian Gothic, and I'm loving just this diversity of Gothic novels beyond the classic white/Western versions. So why not add another kind of Gothic? I highly recommend listening to the episode of the Spirits podcast that Keala was featured on, also entitled Hawaiian Gothic. I love listening to the author talk about what inspired her to write this book, and really appreciated her deep dive into just the unfortunate real things that have happened in Hawaiian history that make it a prime space for the Gothic to thrive. And that is a young adult horror novel. I'm also really excited about Dragonfruit by Makiia Lucier. This is a young adult romantic fantasy involving dragons and dragon fruit. I'm wondering if maybe it has something to tie in with eggs. This author is from Guam, and the fantasy world is heavily inspired by Guamanian culture. I have one middle grade novel on my list, and that is A Strange Thing Happened in Cherry Hall by Jasmine Warga. I read a different book by Jasmine for school back in the day when I was taking children's literature in college, and I absolutely loved that one. That was Other Words for Home, and this looks like a good old middle grade fantasy mystery situation. Something's going on in this museum, and I think this turtle has something to do with it. So I'm going off of what the Asian Readathon considers the different parts of Asia. So a couple of these are going to be from places that I was taught to call the Middle East, but now I know the actual correct term is Swana, Southwestern Asia, and Northern Africa. And Jasmine Warga is a Jordanian American. I also have 3 nonfiction books I'm adding to my TBR. The first is actually a graphic novel called This Country by Navied Mahdavian. I love graphic novels, and I'm getting more into memoirs, but I don't think I've ever read a book that combined both of those kind of mediums. So I'm interested to see that. And the story follows the Iranian-American author along his homesteading journey in rural and conservative Idaho. I found this recommendation from my library. It was on a list they had. So I do want to get to this sometime. The art style looks really like minimalistic, but I also like how color is being used. The second nonfiction book I'm adding to my list is Ma and Me by Putsata Reang. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. I am not good at pronouncing words in English, let alone learning new names. So, this author is a Cambodian refugee who fled to the US base in the Philippines. And I did get this recommendation from somebody here on YouTube. I forgot to write down who it was, but I really liked the way they talked about it. I want to say that was Kel Sweetie, but I'm not sure. And it looks like this memoir talks about generational trauma. Understandably so. I mean, I feel like that's pretty much expected since the author is a refugee. But also her queer identity, the cultural and familial duties, and how that can kind of conflict between generations. And the last nonfiction book I am adding to my TBR is Empire of AI by Karen Hao. Karen is a Chinese American, and she is an investigative journalist that did a deep dive in OpenAI and its global impact into business, politics. This book was published in May 2025, so it is fairly recent. I really don't know much about AI. I know it's negatively affecting the environment just because of how much water is used, and I know the basics, right? How obviously using more resources, that's taking it away from people. There's all these data centers popping up everywhere. Can we not make this stuff more efficient if people think it is as essential to life now as they say it is? I don't know. I don't know if that's possible. Can we use the AI to make AI greener? And since I haven't read this book yet, I would probably say that this nonfiction genre would be like business, politics, and probably computer science. But yeah, those are some books that I want to read at some point. Didn't end up picking them for this year's Asian Readathon, but wanted to share anyway. And now, what I promised in the beginning, a little sneak peek at the books that I've been reading for the challenge. I finally got to Local Heavens by K.M. Fajardo. Queer, cyberpunk, Great Gatsby retelling. Okay, it's amazing. I have finished this. But as you can see, it's a lot thicker than the regular Great Gatsby, so it took a little bit longer. And then one of the books that I'm still reading is Permanent Record by Mary H.K. Choi. I started reading this a few years ago, had to put it down because life, and I'm finally getting back to it, reading it in a print version this time instead of an ebook, and honestly, I'm not even at the point that I had to stop yet, but I am liking it a lot, and I will finish it this time. I'd love to know what you're reading, and if you have any recommendations for me by Asian authors. That's it for this video. I hope you have a great day, and don't forget to sign up for your library summer reading program.